Now that was an entrance. I don't feel no ways tired. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. I want to thank our earlier speaker for giving me the courage. I'm DeRionne Pollard. I am an African-American woman who's an out lesbian, who's the president of a community college, and I have embraced my movements so that I can empower others to embrace their own. Movements are an interesting thing. Sometimes movements are symbolic, sometimes they're musical, sometimes, if we're very lucky, they can transport us to different spaces and places. And oftentimes, movements are social and cultural. I'll share with you, movements have a personal meaning in my life. When I heard President Obama call out in his inauguration speech, Seneca Falls, Selma, and Stonewall, all I could think about is that I'm the progeny of those movements. Literally, though, movements mean something in my family. Now, my father tells the story this way. I want you to keep that in mind. I'm a daughter. I'm the daughter of two Southerners who met on a bus traveling from Jackson, Mississippi to the north. My mother, this high yellow beautiful thing, sassy woman I'd like to think, was sitting on the bus, had already been on their previous stop, and my father got on, and my father tells me that she said to him, "Why'd you walk past this seat? Why don't you have a seat and sit next to me?" Mind you, that's my father telling the story. But Daddy says he sat down next to her, and they talked for 15+ hours. He got to Chicago. This is the first time he told me this story. He got to Chicago, and he slipped the bus driver a little extra money to ride with her to Detroit. Dropped her off at her sister's house, came home, and at 18 told his mother that he had met the woman that he was going to marry. 6 months later, they were married. A few years later came DeRionne. A few years later came Dawn. This was after he had gone to Vietnam and came back. And after that, my father was a widower. My mother died when I was 4. What's interesting about that, though, is that movements are significant. Sometimes movements are painful. Sometimes they are literally transferring you from one spot to the other. Sometimes movements start revolutions. Movement for me was significant then as I grew up to live with my aunt. On the weekends, went with Daddy. During the week, we were with my aunt. What was very interesting about that is that we live in a place called Wentworth Gardens. So I don't know if you all know anything about Chicago Heights, Illinois. If you know anything about places called gardens, they typically aren't a garden. Right. So a place called Wentworth Gardens, where in America we still had to boil our water because the plant that was behind us somehow polluted the water stream in such a way that you could literally drink the water, or you could walk to the corner store in 1975 and buy for 50 cents a gallon. Talk about price gouging. Or you could boil the water until it tasted normal and drink that. But I lived with my aunt, and my earliest memory about education are 2. One was living with my aunt, and she decided at a young age, at that time having 4 of her daughters and now having my sister and I with her, she decided that she should start an in-house child care center so that she could take care of the kids and help my father with us. So on Tuesday and Thursday nights in the state of Illinois, in order to get certified to have a child care center, you had to go to the community college to get certification. Wow. So on Tuesday and Thursday nights, my sister and I, probably at that time 5 and 6, sat outside of the classroom where my aunt and 2 of her older daughters were taking classes to get certified to have a child care center in their home. And my sister and I sat and ran around, played, and we knew for a fact that we were going to go to college because we got to go to the local community college to do that. That harkened another memory for me, the idea of standing at Kennedy King Community College, no more than 3, clapping cymbals so that my mother at the time could go to take classes at Kennedy King Community College in Chicago. So for me, it's kind of ironic that I'm a community college president. Maybe not.
That's right.
But it was ingrained in me very early that community colleges serve a powerful purpose in this country. Perhaps the most transformational institution in contemporary America. What's important about that, though, is that we have to think about how we choose to lead these organizations. So fast forward several years, I went on to become the first in my family to earn a college degree. I'd earned my master's degree. I was now teaching at the College of Lake County, and I'd served there for 2 years, just about 2 or 3. And I was doing a presentation in front of our adjunct faculty, about 600-700 of them, about professional development. And I walked off the stage, and Dr. Russell O. Peterson walked up to me, and he said, "DeRionne, you are going to be a community college president." So I looked at him and I said, "Russ, I just want to get tenure." And he said, "You'll get that." He said, "But you are meant to do something else. The first thing we need to do is to have you get a doctorate. We need to get you to have some professional experiences, and we need to expose you to what we do in community colleges." Now, mind you, I already knew a little bit about community colleges because they played this formative role in my life, but not for once did I ever think about the fact that as an out African-American woman, that I would not be able to be a college president. Our concerns and his concern was the idea of how could I be exposed so I could bring forth the narrative of what community colleges do. I am DeRionne Pollard. I embraced my movement so that other people can embrace theirs. Fast forward even further into this, I'm now the president of Montgomery College, your community college. Just out of curiosity, how many of you attended Montgomery College? Raise your hand.
Wow.
How many of you have family members? Keep your hands up. How many of you have family members who have attended Montgomery College? How many of you have employees who are attending Montgomery College? How many of you have neighbors who are attending Montgomery College? How many of you wish you had attended Montgomery College? How many of you are philanthropists of Montgomery College? Now, I want you to know about 90% of the folks in this room raise their hand at some point because they know about the power and potency of what this institution does in this community. We do that because we know the value of education. I speak from a deeply personal place when I tell you that it can transform a family, it can transform a community, and it will indeed transform our world based on the work that I know Montgomery College is doing in other countries. They're envy. Matter of fact, an Indian businessman told me as I'm touring the country and talking about community colleges, he said, the best export that Maryland may have to India is its community college system. I don't know about you, but that kind of gave me a little shiver. So I know for a fact that we serve powerful purposes in our community. We do that because we are an open access institution. We're committed to the fact that the working reservist and the returning veteran can find a space at Montgomery College. The honor student and the developmental education student, the working mother and the stay-at-home father, all have a space at Montgomery College. The beautiful part about the work we do, though, is that we have, dare I say, leaned in to our movement. We meet people where they are, and our goal is to transport them to where they want to go. I am a community college president because I love my job.
Awesome.
But I also know that DeRionne Pollard has an important role in that. And I never forget my own narrative, my own movement as I've done this work. My grandfather was the male version of the Help in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Now my grandfather passed last year at 98 years old. Now depending on when you catch him, some days he would tell you it was 8th grade he completed, but we know somewhere in there he didn't complete high school, barely finished probably the 8th grade. My father went on and completed high school. His children, my sister and I, both went to college, both secured advanced degrees, and both of us are doing, I think, important work in this world. But the pure and the most simplest power of education is the fact that now this glorious little boy that I get to parent with the woman that I have loved for 24 years says to me, Mama, after I go to college, I will be an engineer, an artist, and a ninja. I am DeRionne Pollard. I am the daughter of Southerners. I am a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a community college president, I'm a community college activist, and more importantly, I have embraced my movements so that I can empower someone else to embrace theirs. How do I know this? About 4 years ago, give or take, I started at Montgomery College. One of the things that often happens is that people knew a lot about me before I got here. Anytime, I guess, the Washington Post is your neighborhood newspaper, people had lots of stories, and it was always the first line in the paper, new college president, out black lesbian. Guarantee you, Google it, you'll find it. So my partner, who's the smarter of the two of us, often says to me, DeRionne, she said, now just for the record, weren't you a college president before you came here? Now, a few of you will realize that. How could I be the first out community college president if I had already been a president someplace else? But you know how Montgomery County is. I happened to be at our Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus, walking down the hallways, and it happens quite frequently to me. I hear a student walk up to me and he says, excuse me, are you Dr. Pollard? Are you Dr. Pollard? So sometimes I like to have a little fun and I'll just whisper to him back, yes, I'm Dr. Pollard. Or sometimes yes, I'm Dr. Pollard. And he says to me, oh, I just want to meet you, I'm so excited to meet you. And I looked, I said, let's stop and talk, and we're standing outside of the computer lab. And as he starts to talk to me, this handsome, gorgeous Latin man, his eyes fill up. And I look at him and I'm like, what's wrong? I said, what's going on? He said, I have to tell you a story. He says, I know you're new to the area. Have you connected with this family and this family? He said, you would be so powerful if you got to know them. He said they were the first out lesbian family in Montgomery County. And he goes on and tells me about how they paved the way, started the movement on issues of marriage equality in Montgomery County and fought in Maryland at the legal level. He goes on and on. I'm kind of wondering, where is he going with the story? As the tears are starting to roll down his face. And he looked at me and he said, I came out to my family. And I said, really? How'd that go? And he said, not so hot. And he talked about his father, who in effect had decided that he had nothing else to do with him. And he still lived at home, but it was a very difficult situation. And his mother, he said, prayed over him constantly, and in so many ways said to him, really, you don't have to talk about this. You don't have to talk about this. You can be gay, but just don't tell anybody about it. He said over the next several months, he'd go over this conversation with his mother, and his mother said to him, you're not going to be anything. Your career is stunted. Don't you know this? You're in our family. You bring shame to our family. By now, the tears are running down both of our faces. But he walked up, he said, but the day you were announced the college president, he said, I took home the announcement. I told my mom, I may not be able to be anything, but I can be a college president. I'm DeRionne Pollard. I'm the child of Southerners. I'm the daughter of a phenomenal woman who was sassy enough to tell her future husband to sit next to me on the bus. I'm the sister of a gorgeous and talented banker who also loves her thighs. I am the wife of a glorious woman who I met walking down Farley Hall at Iowa State University wearing Gumby slippers and her grandmother's house coat, singing a Prince song. I am one mother to a glorious little boy who knows that he is loved and cherished beyond all measure. I am the president of Montgomery College, a community college that is changing lives each and every day and making an impact in this community. I have embraced my movements so that my life can empower someone else to embrace their own. Thank you so much.